gonna see if I can pull it up on my other screen. Waiting to start. Not showing up yet. Alright. Let's see. That's funny. It looks like I'm live here. I am live. Look at that. How's everybody doing? Good to see everybody today. We're getting rolling. Getting a couple of last minute things pulled together here. Good to see everybody today. You're supposed to be turned down. Alright. Alright, we'll let everybody kind of get rolling in here. I'm driving today, so always fun, even though interesting. Restream needs to be refreshed, I'm assuming. Alright, let's see. Yeah, that ratio still looks wrong, even though I redid it. And that's not how it looks on my preview screen. Isn't that interesting? Let's try this. I guess because it's live, it doesn't want to do it. So we'll let you guys have a look at Prime real quick while I see if I can figure out why my camera is being so difficult. Huh. It's providing me with a different set of options now than it was before. I guess because we're live, I can only do so much. Let's see what happens if well, that didn't work. Trying to make it behave, and it's just not going to. Alright, we'll scale to window like that. We'll just live with it for today. That way I'm not stretched out like a weird, crazy person. So, alright, nope, still doing it. Wow, okay. There's something else going on in my settings, so for some reason I am very wide. So, hope everybody's doing okay. Yeah, I agree about being in radio, Blake. You know, in my radio classes in college, my professor told me, he's like, you have the perfect face for radio. He was so complimentary of such things. So, still working out, just getting a couple of things about this setup done, and then we'll get started here in just a minute. Like I said, I'm flying solo today, so just messing around with a couple of settings, and let's see what happens if I do this. Alright. Okay, so just getting rid of a little bit of an echo here. See how that works for me. Worked good. Alright. Okay, see who else is getting in. Yeah, I don't know why the video is being funky. It just doesn't want to behave itself. Something up with OBS. Because my preview screen actually looks great. That's the crazy thing. My preview screen does not look like the screen you're looking at. So, anyway, you know, in post-production will slim me up. I'll look like I'm 185 pounds. So that means the image is going to be this wide, you know. So, all right. Well, I think we're about ready to get started here. So let everybody get jumped in on it. As far as I know, I had a request from the Dave Curley here, real quick. Let me see something. Let's see. Before we get started, see if I can sync up something. He's being lazy and working right now. So, I mean, what can we do about a guy who's going to act like that? Um, Not much I can. It's one of those things like, how dare he work while we're supposed to be, in a show online with you guys. So, all right. I'm just going to jump that in last week's document because it's open already. And, oh, wait, that's not what I thought it was. So we'll go back. And, ooh, what's this? I'm finding all kinds of things. Nope, that's not what I want. So the in-ear monitoring document, I'll pop it up on the top there. So you can do what you want to with that. And we can get rolling. All right, guys, we're about to kick off here. We're going to be talking about loops and clicks today. So if you guys are ready, I'm ready. So, all right, here we go. Hey guys, Curtis James here with Church. Let's do that again. Hey guys, Curtis James here with Church Media Creators. And technology has had a huge impact on how we do worship and what we do on a weekly basis. And one of the things we want to talk about today is technology we can use that can be beneficial or can be distracting, and that's loops and clicks. So we're going to dive into how you can use loops and clicks to further what you're doing on Sunday morning, or how you can use them to your own detriment if you're not careful. So, today, it's just me flying solo. Sorry, my cohort, Dave Curley, decided to work today, and so I guess we'll let him do that so he can pay the bills. And I'm just going to be with you guys today, but we're going to talk about something very beneficial, and that is loops and clicks, or guides, or whatever. When we talk about loops and clicks, guys, we can find ourselves really diving into a lot of things. And you may say, I don't even know what loops and clicks are. So let's talk about that for just a second. Now, if you're a worship leader, you may want to stay with us for this session for sure, because this is something that if you're not using, you may want to use, or a lot of people are already using, but we want to make sure we're using it well, which I actually don't think most people do. I think most of us are not using it well. That we're just using it because it's available. So let me explain what I mean when I mean loops and clicks, or loops and clicks and guides and tracks, and there's all kinds of. It starts to sound like boots and cats once you get it all going, right? So when we talk about loops and clicks, what we're talking about is the tracks running in your in-ears. Now, it can be something as simple as a metronome that your band hears and your drummer hears, you hear, to something more complex like a person counting in, chorus 1, 2, 3, or something like that, or even additional instruments that you may not have, like electric guitar riff, or the pad underneath, or the bass line, or strings, whatever, a track also. And so when we describe these things, we will point you guys back to another show we've done, because some of the technology required to do it effectively is in-ear monitoring. If you don't have in-ear monitoring, then you really can't use clicks and tracks. Now, we'll link to that show at the end, because you guys can watch that and you can learn everything you need to know about in-ear monitoring. But I do want to clarify one thing when we start talking about the use of clicks and tracks, and that is in-ear monitoring is a must, and I really discourage you from only having it in your ears. So if you're the worship leader, and you say, well, I'm the one who keeps the tempo, so I'll put the click in my ear and I'll keep everybody together. Great. You are going to find yourself fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting that through every service, because people ebb and flow just a little bit, and you're going to be constantly trying to keep them on it by banging your guitar on downstrums, or reaching your arm out and beating time, or singing like singing that downbeat really hard or something like that. Your drummer has got to have those clicks in their ears. Your bassist really has got to have those clicks in their ears. Really, all of your instrumentalists need the click in their ear if you're using it. So when we talk about click and in-ear monitoring, you can reference that video that we made at the end of the video here. We'll post that up for you. But guys, we want you to know that that is a necessity to use this technology. And there's different ways to do it, and you can do it without spending $1 billion. We have that in that video. I encourage you to watch it. We're not going to talk about all that because we already talked about it. So when we talk about it, let's talk about it starting from the most basic aspect, and that is click. Okay? You say, what is click? Thank you for asking. Maybe somebody, I'm sure someone put that in the YouTube questions here. What is click, right? So, of course, we'll answer that question. You may already know, but click is simply a metronome. It's simply something that allows your band and your team to sync up and be able to play together. Now, it's funny. I grew up in a world that didn't use click. We were supposed to play together. And there's a lot of different ways to consider this from a musicianship standpoint. And I actually don't like using click because I like that flexibility that comes without having it. But at the same time, there have been times where I've been forced to use click because my instrumentalists just can't stay in tempo. And the truth is, in a world where clicks have become prominent, a lot of instrumentalists really struggle more than ever to keep tempo because they haven't had to. And so that's not a knock on anyone's musicianship. It's just the way we interact with music. And so when we start talking about clicks, it's almost a necessity when playing with young players in today's world. Young, say, under 30 years old. Not because they're not good musicians, but because click has become a part of everyday usage in their lives. What it does is it really tightens your band up. Because you can say, well, we're all really good musicians and we're not going to use click. Okay, I get it. I enjoy playing that way personally. But there's no question when you use click, everybody they tighten up and it gets real clean real fast. Okay? And so no matter how good you are, your band will be able to benefit from having that click really tie in. Now you got to have some rules around it. We'll talk about that in just a second. But when we talk about using a click track, just a metronome in somebody's ear, it's that basic. It does a couple of things. One, it makes your entrances super clean. We all struggle with, 2, 3, 4, everybody comes in. All right, great. But everybody really doesn't come in at the same time a lot of the time. But what a click does is it gives you a count in and everybody comes in together really clean, okay? 2, it helps everybody stick together along the way, which is really cool. We want people to be able to stick together through the song and keep consistency. But one of the things it's really helpful for is big stops in a song. Stops in worship songs are extremely common, right? We get the big drop at the end of the bridge, and then boom, we're in huge on this chorus or whatever, right? Well, when you've got a click, everybody makes that entrance after the drop, okay? When you don't, it's always kind of a wondering game. When you have that break, 3, 4, and you're thinking, man, are they going to come in or are they not going to come in? And it's kind of like, da boom, all right, we're there. Every once in a while you nail it and you're like, that was awesome. When you have a click, everybody's hearing it. Click, click, bang. And you're in together super clean, okay? So there are some things that make click very beneficial. There are also things that can make it not beneficial, all right? And it comes down to things like flow, okay? Because we have all this break in between songs. And so all of a sudden, a song ends, and we're ready to move on to the next song. It's a different tempo, and we all sit around and wait. Okay, got to wait for the drummer to start the click. Okay, there it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're in. Okay, awkward silence, super weird. Okay, and so we've got to make sure that we are really careful about how we interact with click, and we got to be careful not to let click drive your worship service. It's something that I've taught for years and years and years and years, and that is, as far as music goes, the music is a tool for worship. Okay, it's not the end product, right? Worship is what we're going for. Music's just a biblical tool for that. So when we start to talk about the use of click, it's the same thing. You've got to use the music, not be used by it. You've got to use the click, not be used by it. Sometimes that may mean that you don't use click on a song because of that reason, and you really should always keep that option kind of in your tool belt. What if we just don't use click on this song? Okay, hey, this song's really simple and we want to make this transition. We're just not going to do click on this one. That is a good option. Okay, so don't throw that out and say we can't play without click. No, you can. Everybody can, right? But a click used right can actually make your transition super smooth, but it requires real diligence from your band members. Okay, so for instance, we get to the end of a song and we've got a trash can ending, boom boom, drummer's already killed the click. Before we're done, as we're finishing it up, he's cueing the next click, and you hear it, click 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 click, and we're in. Literally 4 beats and in if you're in 4/4, 3 beats and in if you're in 3/3. If you're in 2/2, make it 2 measures, right? So, or 2/4, right? So or if you're in 6/8, transitioning from common meter to compound meter, subdivide. Okay, we can talk about that too. But when you're making that transition, we've got this click 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 happening, but your band has to be on the ball and they have to listen for when is that first click coming in. We're trash canning, click 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 click, boom, we're into the next song. So you can use click to make really good transitions, but you have to be very intentional about who's cueing it, when they're cueing it, and that everybody is super tuned in on it, okay? Because that is a key piece of it. Now, just using click adds flexibility as opposed to some of the other options we're going to talk about. And so when you're talking about using click, it can be as simple as a metronome app on your iPhone or iPad. So like for instance, I literally used the Tempo app on my iPhone. You can put a playlist in it, a set list in it, and you can scroll through, you can pick different tempos for your playlist, and literally it's going to give you something visual, it's going to give you audio, you can add accents, you can kill a beat if you want to. So now one is accented beat, right? So it does give you a lot of options. It's really what it's made for, is not as a metronome, but as a click track. And so what that allows you to do is kind of fine-tune something just for your group. And you can put a playlist together that's got the different tempos. You can have your drummer or your bassist. Usually those are your cuers, your drummer or your bassist, because they're rhythm instruments that work together. Drummers usually get the job because they're the tempo setters. For you as a worship leader to do your own clicks or tracks, to do your own cues, guys, that's a lot on your plate, especially if you're also playing an instrument. If you're not, then it's awkward. If you're like, I'm on a wireless microphone walking around and I'm going to come over and push this button here, haha, you didn't see that, right? That doesn't work. If you're playing guitar, now you got to hit it while you're trying to trash can and you're trying to transition. Oh, thank you guys for coming today. Hey, how many things can you multitask and do at once? Well, only so many. I don't care how good you are, all right? So some guys use somebody in the booth to cue the click. That can work for you, but you'd better make sure that your sound man is a musician, okay? Because there's feel to when you start it. You got to feel, hey, that trash can's coming to an end. Your instrumentalist can feel that happening. So you're almost always best off having your click tracks cued from your stage by one of your instrumentalists that you really trust. And that's the most important thing. If that's your keyboardist, then put it by the keyboard. If that's your drummer, put it by your drummer. If that's your bassist, whatever. Kind of the one person on your stage that you're like, that's the person I trust. That's who you want to do it. And as we add pieces, it's going to get more complicated as we go beyond just click here in just a second. Now, And the use of ClickTrack, even if you're just using a metronome app that's free or that you paid $10 for or whatever, you plug it into a channel that's going to your board so that it can filter through a channel in your in-ears, all right? When you do that, then what you can do is you can cue it from the stage, you can listen to it, everybody stays together. At the end of the song, you've told them, hey, when we get to that last chorus and we drop, go ahead and just kill the click. Gives you a little flexibility to your ending. You can kind of slow down, go a little bit of a retard at the ending and slow down. And then you tell them, hey, I'll kind of give you the eye, and you start it, or when you feel the trash or the phase out at the end of that, then boom, hit play on the next song, and here we go. Also, cueing click tracks is really important. I really hope that you're reading scripture during your worship services as a worship leader. I hope that every service you've got scripture in your service. If the first time, I have a friend that says that the first time you read the scripture is when the pastor opens it up at the sermon, then you've really missed something. And I agree with him. And so in your service, say you're reading a scripture between two songs. So you got your click going, it's ended, and now here you are in between. You're reading the scripture, and then you want to start the song right at the end. Read the scripture and decide when you want the click to start. Don't say, okay, when I finish, start. Because here's what happens. I say, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life. Click, 2, 3, 4, enter. That is a world of time. We were just joking on the chat before we started about radio, that my professor in college told me I had the perfect face for radio, and here I am on a video podcast thing. Okay, great. But anyway, that's not in his face. That's just too bad for you. So when we look at the concept of radio, they tell you every second of dead time loses 25 to 50% of your listeners. Every second, okay? Well, I'm going to do a song that's 72 beats a minute, and what just happened? 4 beats after we take a second. So I say eternal life. Oh, he's done. Start. 1, 2, 5, 6, 7 seconds of absolute dead time in your room. Guys, it's a killer. You can't have it. And it happens everywhere. Just go watch. It happens. Because on stage, we don't identify that it's happening. Because we're all going 1, 2, 3, 4, because we can hear the click. But really what it is awkward silence, which is your enemy. You need intentional silence, yes, but not unintentional silence, okay? So when you get to this and you're reading your scripture, you can say, okay, when I say believes, start the click. Whosoever believes in him has everlasting life. Song, okay? So just time it out. Give your click person or your tracks person a cue word. When I say the word believes, start the track. And realize that you're going to say the word believes and then they're going to start the track. Not when you think you're about to start the word believes, okay? Just speak it out. Get a metronome app out and start talking through that scripture, and just start it when you're saying something along the end and go, okay, that's too soon, or that's not soon enough. Time it out. And realize that you want to avoid the dead space, okay? I call it the staring into the void that's happened ever since we've instituted this technology. And this is my biggest pet peeve, and it's the largest failure in almost every worship ministry right now. And that is the dead space, okay? The staring into the void that the instrumentalists are doing. We end a song, boom, 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 end. 2, 3, 4, and then we're in. No. Everybody in the room just disconnected, guys. All of them are like, what are we waiting for? Because they don't know you have a click track in your ear. They don't even know what that means. And they don't want to hear the click track. We don't want them to hear the click track, right? They might hear them if you got one ear out hanging around your neck and your ears are turned up really loud and the click's coming through your microphone. Don't do that, please. All right, but when it comes down to it, we've got this whole thing going on where it's like we want flow in our worship. We want flow in our worship, and then we absolutely kill it as we stare into the void. Guys, don't do it. Plan out a way to use your click to make transitions, or don't use click at all, because it's just going to kill your flow. Okay? Only do it right if you're going to do it. It's really important. And that comes down to a lot about your trigger guy and a lot about how clearly your service is planned. That's the second thing that can be hard about clicks, tracks, or anything like that, is flexibility. Once the click is going, that's where we are. That's where we're going. If you're using a guide or something like that, then it becomes even more complicated. So you have to think about that. And we'll talk about that as we introduce some more aspects of what we're doing here. So just realize that's what a click track is, and that's how it works. There's a lot of different ways to use it, and all of them are can be beneficial or destructive. Now, one other thing about staring into the void that I'll say is it's not just between songs. When you have that break, that drop in the song, and you've got this really clean, you're all going to get back in at the same time and everything, just watch. Go back and watch a video. You're probably streaming. Go back and watch a video of your band last time you did a big drop. If you're using click, there's this weird, again, the staring into the void. My guitar starts jung, 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 break. Boom. There's this disconnect. We can hear something, but nobody else in the room does. And what it means is, a lot of times, as leaders, we don't cue our people well on the entrance, because we can hear the click. We know it's coming. And we just think, oh, well, they'll sing with us. But here's what happens. If I'm just leading with a microphone and I get to the end of the chorus, it's big, or the bridge, and boom, 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 boom. 1, 2, 3, 4. G. No. This is a huge stop. It's a big break. You have got to stay, one, connected to the congregation, and you need to bring them in because they don't feel it coming. And it gets really awkward. Go back and watch it, okay? So instead, make sure when there's a break, it's a break. You've got physical cue of, we're taking a second, and then bring your hand up and bring it down on that, or just step forward, or if you're playing an instrument, strike it where people can tell you're coming in. See them preparing on that upbeat. Let them know what's happening, because click can cause disconnect in those moments too, where it's actually helping the band. It could hurt the room. So make sure that you're not ignoring that, and you're encouraging your band. Stay connected to the room even though you're listening to the click. Very, very important. I see good comments coming up on here. Now, here's the thing, guys. We're going to kind of transition to kind of the next phase, and that would be what I would describe as loops or tracks and guides. Okay? Now, tracks are exactly what you think they are. They are the music. They are the music. So, for most worship songs that are out there right now, you can go and buy the stems for them. And the stems are the multi-track aspects of them. Different companies, the most popular company is Multitracks. That's what they call themselves, which is a really good name when you're going to sell multi-tracks, right? There's also Loop Community. That's what we use. There's different companies out there. Those are probably the two most popular ones. And what you can do is you can go and you can buy the stems, you buy the multi-track, and now you actually have, like the studio recording, vocals on a track, guitar on a track, bass on a track, drums on a track, pad one on a track. And of course, what you know is all this worship stuff has got 2 or 3 drummers now. There's 4 layers of pads. There's 5 electric guitarists, right? And there's no way your band is probably playing all of those things. And so what you realize is, well, if we can throw in auxiliary percussion track, we've got our drummer, he's playing that, or we can throw in pad 4 because our keyboardist isn't playing 4 different pads and we like that underlay on it, or whatever. Multitracks allows you to choose which track you want to play back. And so you can listen to all of them, or you can pick and choose which one you want to play back in your room. These tracks also come with click in them, which is nice, and a guide. Now, a guide is like cheating, okay? It really is, because the guide says intro 2, 3, 4, and everybody comes in, and then as the intro is ending, he says verse 2, 3, 4, and then the verse ends and come into the chorus. Chorus 2, 3, 4, bridge, whatever, ending, big ending, whatever. He'll give you things to follow. He's a guide, okay? Sometimes he sounds funny too, and we like to laugh at him, but that's a whole different story. You know, it's a guide. He's like we'll consider him like a digital assistant, right? And so the guide's in there to kind of help us know what's coming next. And this is a good thing, unless we get off and then it gets really, really confusing, or it's a good thing unless you're not wanting to follow the exact model of the song, like you want to be able to change or repeat something or whatever on the fly. We can talk about how we do that, but it does provide a barrier in that situation that we just have to be careful of. So I want to give you guys an example, because you're probably like, okay, you know, I kind of get this, but I want to give you an example. So like I said, we use a thing called Loop Community. That's one of the places where you can buy multi-tracks from and stems. But they also have an app they call Prime, which I think is just a terrible name, because I have Prime Video and Amazon Prime and Prime Music, and they have nothing to do with Amazon. So I don't know, maybe they named it before Amazon Prime existed. But the app was kind of troublesome for a while, but it seems like it's turned a corner in the last year. I've just been hearing people not having problems with it anymore. And I got to admit, as I've worked with it more recently, I haven't had a problem with it. So that's been nice. It was a little glitchy for a while, but they have done a good job of kind of pulling it back together. So I'm going to show you what the Prime app looks like. Now, everything is different. Each app is going to be different. There's lots of options. This is just one of them. Now, this is a song that we have permission to use. It's written by our worship leader, and so we have his permission to use it, where they did record it, and so they multi-tracked it out, and we have the stems. What that means is, if you look over here, you can see the different stems. You got piano, we've got drums, we've got strings, you know, all that kind of stuff. We actually have two different songs that we're modeling here. This is the one we have permission for. Now that one reloaded. So this one has a lot to it, which is kind of nice for us to be able to see. All of these are instruments that are in the recording. All of them. Guys, that's a lot of instruments. I mean, if you really think about it, there's no way you're using that many instruments in your service. Like, you probably, like, we have brass that plays in our service, and so that's part of the arrangement. There's brass in the arrangement here, but you may not have brass. So if you wanted this song, which, by the way, is an excellent song, it's called Conquered. It's by Tate Springs Music. You can find it on Spotify. It's a great song. I really encourage you to use it. They wrote it for Easter a few years ago. It's phenomenal, and it's a full arrangement. Like, you've got brass, you've got all this kind of stuff. So if you didn't have brass, then what it would mean is you could use the brass tracks in this arrangement while you're doing the song, because the click track and the guide helps your band stay synced to whatever's happening. If you don't have strings, then you can have strings. If whatever, I have a friend who says, you know, on Sunday morning, you know, it's an hour before sound check, and his lead guitarist calls him and says, dude, I am sick. I can't make it. I'm so sorry. Well, you know what he did that week? He had two songs that were super keyed off of lead guitar. He just unmuted that track for that week. Now, I think in an emergency setting, I think that's fine. We'll talk about the philosophy behind using tracks here in just a minute. Right now, we're just talking about the nuts and bolts a little bit. So, it does provide you with a pretty cool option with that. Now, that said, if we look here, we can see that at the top we have waveforms. This is the arrangement of the song, okay? So we can actually see, you know, it's intro, verse 1, verse 2, then we've got a turnaround, then we've got, you know, verse 3, we've got choruses, we've got bridges, we've got, you know, bridge 1, bridge 2, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's all in here for us to see and to arrange. But when I come here and I hit play, hopefully the volume level is pretty good here. You'll hear the click start, and then
intro 2, 3, 4.
So we have the guide, right? we have the click, and we have the tracks. Now, I can kill anything I want to in here. Right? You see what I've got here? I've got the ability to take anything I want to out. Like, why would we want the lead vocalist? Right? We don't want the lead vocalist. We're singing that. Well, now all you can hear is a little bit of background vocals, right? But I can add things in and take them out. Right? I can even take the click out if I want to. Right here. I can kill the click just by muting that. I can change the volume of each of these, right? All right. So I can come in here and say, I can even say, okay, my cue guy's too loud, and I can turn him down. So I have a full mixing capability here. What if I want a little bit of those background vocals, but I don't want all of them? Okay. Yes, definitely click on the leak if you want to hear the song, because you're not going to hear it at its best while I'm continually manipulating it here. So this gives me the ability to mix and control how loud each thing is in my mix. Okay, so as we consider that, basically what it does, it allows me to go in before the service and mix in whatever I want to be a part of the service. Now, additionally, you can actually set up the arrangement to be how you want it to. All right, so just like this, if you look here up at the top, we've got this red bar that shows us where we are, obviously, in our status. Well, what if we wanted to jump into this without the intro? Or what if I don't want to do the first chorus? Or what if I don't want to do the bridge repeat? Or I only want to do a down chorus at the end? Great. I click on edit. I can edit markers, which means I move where the marker is, which is less common once you're set up. But I can edit the arrangement. And I have the ability to move things around in the arrangement however I want to. I can delete segments. I can push things together. So I can change the arrangement any way I want to. Say you want to play the song and then you want to use it at the end of the service too, but you only want to do the chorus. Okay, well, then you put it in an arrangement that only has the chorus. Maybe it has the intro and just the chorus, or maybe it has the turnaround and just the chorus. So you have the ability to manipulate this track however you want to. Now, you want to do that before, not during your service, okay? You can edit any of that. You can reset it back to its original arrangement. You click done, and now it's locked in, okay? The other thing you can see is there's a sync button. This means that, say you're running this off of the iPad app, which you can totally do. You can run your whole service off of an iPad, but you're editing it on your computer during the week. You'll sync it, it'll sync to the cloud, and you'll go sync your iPad, and it will sync up with whatever has been done before that's been uploaded to the cloud. It'll update your playlist, it'll change your arrangements to whatever you had them as, and things like that. Once you enter an arrangement, then it becomes a part of your database of songs, just like ProPresenter. So it's always in there, and you can go and you can pull it in anytime that you want to, and you can use it to and you can change the arrangement anytime you want to as well. So all of that's available to you in ways that allows you to put it as a part of your service planning. When you do that, now you have the guide, which is really nice to keep people together. Oh, there's a chorus repeated here. I forgot about that. Or down chorus. Oh yeah, I need to back off. The guide will give you those cues. Like I said, he's like cheating, okay? And it'll tell you, hey, here's the ending, big ending, and out. It'll tell you when you're cutting off, things like that. So these are all really useful tools. And with the apps available, whether you're using Prime or like Ableton or really any DAW, you can use just about anything to manipulate this with. But some of them you don't get to manipulate the actual arrangement through, while the ones made for this use you can. You can move choruses and bridges around and different things. So you just want to try some different stuff out, figure out what works for you, in what you're doing. You can also realize that these allow you to upload your stuff into their database. So for instance, we didn't buy these stems from Loop Community because we own these stems. We made these stems, but we can still upload them into our library. We can buy something from Multitracks and upload it into our Prime library, and it'll still have manipulation. Depending on where you buy it from, there can be some manipulation problems where you can't change the arrangement or some different things like that you do have to be aware of. Now, one of the things this does for you, if you're using this app at your church, is then this is what your cuer, whether it's your drummer, keyboardist, whatever, this is what your cuer sees, and so they can go from song to song, and they can kill it at the big end of the song. So I can have, a big end with the outro, and it's got this. Okay, now I have this silence, so I need to click to the next one, and we need to get moving, right?
Intro.
And that's a big
3,
intro.
4.
So we have to plan that out when we're thinking about how it affects our overall flow and service. And we need to think, how do we move forward in that song? So these are great tools available to you that allow you to use instruments that you don't have, instruments that you're missing on that day, those kinds of things. It allows you to use a guide to help you through things, and it gives you the ability to utilize all of these things and manipulate them to the level you want them to. Let me give you an example of how this could be effective. Let's say you've got a choir on your stage, right? Now, most choirs are simply not as big as they used to be, and sometimes you may struggle with them putting out enough level to be beneficial for you. And so your worship guy might look at you and say, hey, we're going to be running the tracks, but will you put a little voice in there? And so two things to know. One, just make sure that you go into your mix and you probably bring the voices down. If you're using some of the other tracks, using strings or something, those may be up. Bring them down a little bit. Don't make it too obvious. Now, if you want to get really, really complex, you can actually manipulate these at your soundboard as individual channels. I know some guys who are doing it. I thought it was really going to catch on. It seems like it hasn't. But literally, you can actually send this. If you run it from your booth, or if you have a direct link somehow, you can actually send these as individual channels to your board, where they could literally mix the bass or the acoustic or the voices on individual channels on your soundboard. Now that's kind of next level. And if you're using a lot of tracks and you've got a lot available to you, then you might be able to pull that off. I don't necessarily recommend it. I think the best thing to do is to mix it in beforehand, have the levels the way you want them as the worship planner, and then just let it run that way. But if you want all the ability and all the control, you can actually multi-track that out in a way that you can control it on individual channels at your board. And it's pretty darn cool, to be honest with you. It's pretty awesome. Now, let's talk for just a second as we kind of start to land the plane. We've got a few minutes left here. As we start to land the plane, then I want us to talk about the dynamics of using these things. Now, we talked about on the front end kind of how it can create flow or kill flow. Tracks is even more that way. Okay, with a click, if people get off the click, you just kill the click, and that's important. Whoever is running your tracks and clicks needs to know when things go sideways, just stop them. Just stop them. If we drop a beat and we missed our intro, kill all the tracks, which there's a button you can do that with, and only keep the click in. Kill the guide, only keep the click in. If we get off the click entirely, kill the whole thing. Because otherwise, everybody's going to try to get back on, and they're going to pick a different beat to do it on, and then you're going to be off, for one, and two, people are going to be in different places. Sometimes it's just going to go south, and you have to live with it. So make sure they know they can kill it, okay? The next thing is just to realize that with the instrumentation of tracks involved, your ability to say, I'm going to tag a chorus. Let's do that bridge again. That becomes really, really difficult, because while you can set this stuff up to where your guy operating it can re-cue, oh, we're going to repeat that chorus, we can click on that and it'll tag the chorus or something like that. I don't really recommend it. It's a lot to overcome. So at that point, you either want to have a way to let your guy know, this is my hand motion for, we're leaving the tracks behind, so they know to kill it. Now, if you're highly relying on the tracks for that arrangement, then it's going to sound like the bottom dropped out. So it does highly affect your flexibility. Now, I know guys who say, well, when I want to repeat that bridge, I just get to the end of the song and say, hey, let's repeat that bridge again. Do it with, you do it without the tracks. You kind of had an ending and you move ahead. It works great that way, but it does impact your ability to make changes in the middle of a song. And so you need to know that and realize it will impact your flexibility. And your people need to know that sometimes making changes, following the moving of the Spirit during that worship service is more important than staying with the track. And as the author Bob Sorge says, worship is like a river; it doesn't flow in a straight line. Set lists flow in straight lines, and so I really encourage you to consider that as you're using tracks, as to how much track you rely on for a song, realizing if there's a song that you're thinking you may want a little flexibility with, you may want to really limit your track usage on that. So you have the ability to say, hey, let's do that bridge again. And then your person knows, okay, well, I'm dropping the tracks out. We'll keep the click. And you just move forward with that. And your band knows that's coming. Really important to keep that in mind when you're talking about flexibility when it comes to tracks. The other thing that's very, very important to think about is, are we replacing human beings, worship leaders on our stage with tracks? Okay, here's what it comes down to. My drummer's not that good. He's just not that good. I listen to these recordings. These drummers are really good. Yeah, they're professionals. Yours is probably not a professional, right? And so you're like, I'll have my drummer up there, but we're still going to use the tracks because, he can't do all that stuff. Okay, but the drummer knows that's happening. Do you want to play when someone's just playing a recording over what you're playing? Do you feel valued and what you're doing is important? Now to say, hey, we're going to throw in auxiliary percussion, the drummer's going to play the set. Auxiliary percussion, which would be played by someone else, we don't have that guy. Oh, okay, now we're supplementing what we don't have. That is different. We're not devaluing a position. If you got an acoustic guitar player and you're going to play the tracks of the acoustic guitar up full volume while he's playing his intro, he knows, why is he up there? He's window dressing. As a worship leader, would you want him to just turn the lead vocals up and you can just lip sync? Of course not. We have to acknowledge God has placed people in our worship ministry to learn and grow and use their gifts. If we replace them with technology, we are erasing what God is trying to do in and through their lives. It's more important to engage people in worship leadership than to sound like the recording. Sounding like the recording is not what God wants for your church unless He put the band who recorded it in your room. You're a different church. You're supposed to sound different. So be careful about using instruments that are on your stage in your tracks, because what you're liable to do is end up on an empty stage where all you're doing is singing a karaoke song with your congregation because nobody feels valued. Be careful. Value the tools that God has given you, even if they're not as good at what they're doing as you want them to be. Okay? I can't stress that enough. Now, the other thing is the supplementing of instruments. So let's say a song starts with bagpipes. I'm sure there's a worship song that starts with bagpipes. Just listen to the Gettys. It's got to be out there, right? So here you go. So you got this song and it starts with bagpipes. And all it is 2 measures of bagpipes, right? Here we go. All right, bagpipes. Awesome. Everybody in the room knows there is not a bagpipe player on your stage, right? Ain't no kilts on your stage, right? And so here you are, you've got this bagpipe sound coming. Everybody on stage is listening to the click. They're staring into the void, waiting for their entrance. And the whole room is listening to a recording of bagpipes. Okay. Is that good? Is that helping us connect with worship, or is it just making us sound like the recording? You got to be really careful about making it obvious that you're using instruments that you don't have. Say strings, for instance. Strings are cool because they just they lay down like a pad, and your keyboard can make string sounds. So say your song has an intro and it's got some strings that kind of swell up, and your keyboard is sitting there ready to start their piano part. Most people think your keyboard is just making that sound. It's just supplementing your sound. So be careful. Be careful about using instruments that you don't have on your stage. I'm not saying you should never do it at all. If you want to do Concord here and you want to use the brass parts because you think those are fun, great. Truly, some people are going to think, wow, that keyboard player is really good. They're playing those brass parts. But they know there's not brass on your stage. But just be careful about two things. One, having an instrument playing while nobody on your stage is playing anything. It gets kind of awkward. Or having instruments that are clearly not on your stage that your song is 100% reliant on. If you do that very often, people are going to start to wonder, like, what is real? What's not real? We need to make sure people know what we're doing on Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night in our worship settings is real. People need to know it's real. Be careful not to alienate your people with tracks. Be careful not to put yourself in such a box that you can't follow the Spirit with loops and clicks and tracks. And be careful not to alienate your congregation by disconnecting, by putting something that doesn't feel real in your room. Use them to supplement, not to replace. Okay? That's the key. Use them to supplement, not to replace. All right, well, as we're closing out here today, appreciate you being with us. We have been using Restream. I didn't mention it earlier on. Restream is a great tool to allow you to stream to whatever platform you want to. We're going through it right now to get to YouTube, but I could be using it right now to get to Facebook or other platforms that I choose to use. Restream is a great tool. I recommend that you check it out because it is awesome. Here at Church Media Creators, we love to help you amplify the gospel so that people can hear it. Let's leverage what God has given us in these tools, even clicks and tracks and loops, to figure out how we can use these things to connect people to the gospel and what God's doing. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. Don't forget to check out that video, this video, on in-ear monitoring. If you're wanting to use loops and clicks, you got to have in-ear monitoring. That information's right there for you. We'll catch you next time. All right, guys. Well, cool. Thanks for being in with us today. I'll take just a couple minutes here and jump through some stuff. There's a lot going on in the chat today. Let's see. Oh, yeah. And Cord says it. The click tracks thing. So I mentioned the difference between going through common meter like 2, 4, 3, 4, 4, 4, 2, 2. Well, 2/2 is technically not common meter, but still has the right feel. And compound meter like 6/8, 12/8, 9/8, something like that. It is pretty brutal if you're using a click and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 song ends, and now we're starting in 6/8. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, that's not gonna help our people feel it. They need to hear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that click does need to be subdivided. So they hear 1, 2, 3, 4 out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. And da, da, da. Okay, so make sure that you subdivide those 6/8. If you have a really slow song, you also may want to subdivide common meters. Your guide, if you have a guide, your guide oftentimes will kind of do that. He might go 4, 5, 6 or something like that to kind of help you get the feel. But yeah, that can be brutal. I played keyboard a few weeks ago, and we went from 3/4 to 6/8 to 4/4, 3 songs in a row, and they were like, like quick transitions, and I was like, oh, my brain just doesn't want to do this, So yeah, definitely keep that in mind. Um, Justin joined us. Good to see Justin. All right. Um, let's see what other questions you guys had. Da, 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 da. All right. Rockwell, Texas, dude, you're just up the road. Awesome, glad to have you, Kyler. So, and then we have the UK. You're not up the road, but if you ever want me to come over, I'll gladly come over and see you. Just crash on your couch. So, let's see. Karaoke worship. Yeah, I'll probably get in trouble for that one, but guys, it's just true, isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah. Um, I'm glad the audio came through okay. It was a little bit thrown together. So it's always a little interesting to do all of it. And this is something to say about setup, guys. I'm literally running this whole show with a webcam, a $30 Sarmonic mic, and one computer, one laptop computer. Everything's running on the same screen. I'm not streaming audio from anywhere else. The app is on my computer. Like when I switch to it, I'm still clicking on the same thing that I am to control OBS and all that kind of stuff. It's all on the same thing. Same thing that my little script is on. Same thing that Restream is running on. All that kind of stuff. So you can do a lot with a little. And then I'm just monitoring on an iPad. So yeah. So it's good stuff. Yeah. Let's see if there's any other interesting questions. Michael W. Smith did bagpipes. Of course he did. Yeah. Presbyterian. Yeah, okay, I get you. I get you, the bagpipes thing. But really, if you can have real bagpipes, use them. Dude, I would kill to have bagpipes on my stage. That would be so much fun. People think I'm crazy. I just put the weirdest things on my stage. Y'all have seen my banjo or my banjitar or my 6-string banjo. One of the guys in the band borrowed my 12-string guitar the other day. My son, who's a worship leader, borrowed the 12-string because and the banjo, and he did a worship set using the banjo and the 12-string and a mandolin and different stuff. It's just fun. I love different instruments. I would use a bagpipe for sure. Definitely. I would use a didgeridoo if I could find someone who actually knew how to play a didgeridoo in the United States. Never found it. Only found him in Australia. They can play a didgeridoo in Australia, let me tell you. Cool, yeah. We'll get to some of these questions. We'll definitely follow up on, and so hey, I saw that, Cord. You said don't tell anybody that you said that, but I'm reading it. Like, I know that happened. So, all right, guys. Well, glad you guys have been with us today. I hope it's been beneficial. This one's a little different, and it definitely leans more toward the worship leader. But as technologists, as church media creators, we definitely it should be interacting with this kind of technology. And if you're not, you will be at some point because it's coming. There's no way to get around it. It's a very popular thing that a younger generation of instrumentalists and musicians has become reliant on as a tool. Again, that's not a criticism on their musicianship. They're great musicians, but it's just like a monitor. If you were around in 1950, 1940, you didn't have a monitor. As musicians in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and after, monitors are standard. We can't imagine getting on stage and performing without a monitor, right? So that doesn't make us less of a musician. It's just a technical tool that we are accustomed to, and you need to know that if you want to engage younger musicians, a lot of them are going to expect you to be using these tools also, and they'll get frustrated if you're not. So thanks for joining us. If you have any questions, put them in the questions link there, and we will